All right, everyone, welcome back to the Dead Pundits Society. And today we're going to be continuing our series of looking at leagues and seeing what players teams need to sign in the January transfer window. So we started out with the Premier League as the most followed league in the world and as a league that Jake is more of an expert in. Today we're going to be having a look at the Serie A. Obviously, as an Italian, that's more down my alley, but we've had some looks. We had a look at what teams need, and yeah, I hope there'll be some insightful discussion here.
Yeah, for sure. Where do you want to start off? At the top of the table or
I'll start at the top, yeah. I mean, we're gonna like with the Premier League, probably just do a couple of the main of the main teams, and then from there, yeah, we're not gonna do all 20 teams, unfortunately, today. Maybe in a future video. I would start with Inter since they're first right now. And Inter, it's kind of an interesting one because they kind of need two players, but one in the more
they do?
immediate term and one in the summer. So I think in the summer they really need a new goalkeeper. It might be a bit cliche, but I think Sommer's been quite poor this season. He's conceded quite a few crucial goals. And so they'll definitely be looking for a goalkeeper. But I don't have a goalkeeper on my list because I think for January, their more pressing need is a right wing back. So they normally have Dumfries in that position, but he's been injured this year and he's coming back in a couple weeks. But they'll probably need someone to cover for him when he's rested. And obviously on the left-hand side, they've got Di Marco, one of the best attacking fullbacks in the game. And so for the right wing back position, I envisage more of a player that can just act as a stopgap for these last 6 months until they can get someone in the summer. So I've actually written down Timothy Castagne. So he plays for Fulham. He's been not super informed this year, but I think he could make a valid contribution to Inter. He has Serie A experience. He played for a few years at Atalanta, and he's used to playing in a three at the back as well as a four at the back. So I would go for him just because I think Inter doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend in January, and they can probably get
Mm.
him either on loan with a option to buy or potentially just on loan and on the cheap, obviously. And yeah, so for Inter, I went for him. Hopefully, he can bolster their ambitions to win the Serie A.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely think that position is a bit of a problem position for them at the moment. I think yeah, Darmian and Dumfries are both injured, unless I'm speaking out of turn. I think they've had
Yeah.
they've had those problems there, like you were mentioning. It's interesting because that is an important position, but I also thought of another problem that they might potentially have, which is that both Acerbi and De Vrij are out of contracts this summer, right? That's both their center backs or two of their center backs. Acerbi is obviously quite old, so we don't really know if they're going to offer him a new deal or how that'll go. And I don't really know what's going on with De Vrij, why that hasn't necessarily been locked down yet. But the one that I actually thought of, and it might sound super basic, but I was thinking, why not try and bring Milan Skriniar back? You know, he's currently playing in the Turkish league. Um, he was extremely successful at Inter a couple years ago. I think he won what, two titles with them or something like that. He's a proven Serie A center back, good player. You know, maybe might not have enjoyed as much success as PSG as he did at Inter, but you know, he's 30, which is not young, but you can get at least, you know, 4 or 5 seasons out of him and he knows the system. He's yeah, so that's where my thought process was.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for De Vrij, I think the reason why they're trying to shift him in the summer is because he's been quite poor for them and also a bit injured over the last couple of years. And he makes quite a lot of money as well, so that's partly the reason for them to want to make a change here. For Skriniar, I mean, I don't hate it as a suggestion. The only thing is that he did leave very acrimoniously last time he left Inter. Like he signed a pre-contract with PSG, left on a free. And a lot of the Inter fans kind of felt like he was screwing them a little bit by not even allowing them to get a transfer fee after he'd been with the club around 5, 6 years. So it would be interesting to see if that would be even a possibility. Inter has changed coach since then, so maybe Kivu would be able to convince Skriniar to come back, but it was definitely a bit of a fractious divorce. So I'm not sure if they'd want him back. And also, I think he probably makes a lot of money at Fenerbahce. Like the Turkish salaries tend to be quite high to attract the top
That's
players.
that's true, but I think if you can take the chance on a player that knows your system, knows the league, is a proven defender, even if things might not have ended on the best possible terms, there's been a couple years since then. It's an interesting proposal. But
Yeah.
one that I've seen them linked with as well, I didn't want to put him in my list because I think it's a little strange, but they've been linked with an Ivan Perisic return.
Yeah.
Shockingly, back from I think he's currently playing in the Dutch league, right? But Ivan Perisic is obviously older. I think he's got to be what, 36, 37 now.
Yeah, I think
Um,
he's pushing 38 even this year. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And maybe it could be successful, but he's more of a left, left mid, left wing back. It doesn't really address that other issue they have on the other side. But yeah, I guess that would be an interesting link up if it does happen.
It would be interesting to see him back, but yeah, I mean, he's quite on the older side, so that would definitely be a stopgap in my opinion. What
Yeah.
about, okay, moving on to Milan. So who do you have for Milan?
Yeah. So for Milan, I saw that they were linked with Eric Dyer, though he's recently gotten injured. So I think that's off the cards. But what I was thinking of, to be honest, I feel like they need a striker, is my thought process. I think they need attackers that fit in that system. I mean, they've got Leao on one side, Pulisic on the other. And I was thinking when you've got those two wingers that are, have quite an eye for goal and aren't necessarily uh traditional wingers, right? They like to be goal scoring, they like to create. Why not pair them with a striker that can play the false nine, that can build up goals? And as much as I speak, maybe not the best about this guy, I think Gabriel Jesus could be an interesting one for them. He's lost his place in the Arsenal lineup. He's not their starting attacker. He doesn't fit the starting striker mold that they need. But maybe his game could translate better to the Serie A, which is, a bit less physical than the Premier League, a bit slower. He's a good dribbler. He's a decent creator, and I thought, that could be an interesting punt for them.
Yeah, that's actually quite an interesting suggestion, like I hadn't really thought of that. So, but I think his dribbling would definitely be good for the league. I had kind of gone down a different route because the thing is Milan do have quite a few strikers right now. Like they have three strikers currently under contract. So the first one being Santiago Jimenez, the second
Yeah,
one, even though he's been pretty poor for them. The second one being Nkunku, who they signed from Chelsea for about
yeah.
35 million euros in the summer. And the third one, who they just signed on loan from West Ham, Niklas Füllkrug. So
He's
the thing
he's had a
is,
poor start though.
he's at a poor start for sure. I mean, he has scored a goal, but the thing is, they have three strikers, and they also have Francesco Camarda, who's on loan in Lecce
But
this year,
yeah,
but he'll be coming back.
but Nkunku can also play the sort of 10 role. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't think yeah. But yeah, it's a good
No,
point.
that's true. I mean, like, so that's for that reason I went for a different position, but I do think that Gabriel Jesus would be a good addition to their squad. I mean, he almost joined Inter in 2016 before he joined Man City, so that would be kind of a blast of the past in some ways. But for me, I also saw it as like a very short-term need, and so this might sound a little bit crazy. I think they should go and sign Marco Verratti from the Qatari league. Now, the reason I'm saying that is because assuming that Italy, well, Gattuso's desperately looking for someone to play that kind of midfield role, pulling the strings for our playoff matches in the spring in March. And apparently he's identified Marco Verratti as one of the players that he wants to see. But obviously playing in the Qatari league, it's not the most competitive league. So he asked them to play somewhere where the level's a bit higher. And I think it would be interesting for Milan. Now, the reason is Allegri tends to like players that are a bit more seasoned. He's not really a guy that takes a lot of punts on youth. And Milan have Modric in that position, but Modric is 40, 41 years old this year, right? So he won't be able to play
Yeah.
every single game. So in the games where maybe he's rested, you could have a Marco Verratti step in. And I think that would be a good chance both for Milan to have a short-term, really strong midfielder that is able, well, not strong physically, of course, but strong in a technical sense. And for Verratti, it would be a good opportunity for him to show Gattuso that he still has it at the highest level in preparation for those games. And obviously if we make the World Cup, also in preparation for the summer tournament. So that's a kind of a bit of a, short
Yeah, that's
term
a
take by me.
that's outside of the outside the box. Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, Verratti actually never played in Serie A. He played in Serie B before leaving to PSG, where he stayed for, over a decade. Um, he's been in Qatar for what, 3 years now, something like
Something
that.
like that. I think round two.
But he's not that old. I think he left PSG, he was only like 30 or so. So and his
Yeah,
game is
I
much
think
more
he's
technical.
yeah.
He's never been the fastest anyways. That's a outside of the box pick. He could translate well. I mean, I'd love to see him play in Italy. I've never seen him play in this area. And it could be a good way to try and secure national team business. So yeah, that's a outside of the box pick.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see at least from a neutral standpoint. Now, for Napoli, it's kind of tough because they're trying to sign a striker, but they need to offload some of their current strikers, and they also signed Giovane from Verona a few days ago, which they signed for a lot of money. I'm not really convinced by, but that's a separate question. But I actually think they might need a bit of cover at center back. They've had quite some injuries at center back in the last couple months, especially Buongiorno. He's one of the best center backs we have in Italy, but he's been injured quite a lot. They brought him in for a big fee from Torino. Someone that I think they could sign and that would fit the mold of players Conte usually likes to bring into the Serie A, and you'll know him because he's a Chelsea player currently, is Axel Disasi. So I think he would be a good signing in the Serie A. He's not the fastest player, but he is quite physically strong. And I don't know, I feel like he could be a Victor Moses-esque signing that propels Conte and Napoli to new heights in the Serie A. So I went for Disasi. I know that he is on the outskirts of the Chelsea team right now.
Yeah.
And unless that's
It's
changed recently under Rosignor, but at
no,
least as a few weeks ago.
that's a nice way of putting it. Not to cut you off, but he's been like completely iced out. I mean, um he had been identified by Maresca even as the season began, him and Sterling as people who would be not included in the squad whatsoever. Um I think that is good for all parties involved. I really wanted him to work out. He's a French center back. I've wanted all of our French center backs to work out. We've had, it's another conversation, but him, Badiashile, and obviously Fofana, these three are at very different levels, but I think that would be good for all parties involved. I wouldn't mind Chelsea offloading him at all, and if his game translates well, then fair enough. I went a little bit of a different direction for Napoli. Um, I actually started thinking about their midfield because the thing is, when KDB inevitably encounters injury issues, I think that's painful for them. His injury issues were present at Man City. It's not like they're going to disappear overnight now that he's playing in the Serie A. Um, and even though these players don't really fit the exact mold of KDB, they at least provide depth. And I was thinking Veerman from PSV. He's
Okay.
a center mid. He's good. He's creative. I think he offers depth. I know he's played both in the 8 and the 10 for PSV, and I think it's another option. Otherwise, in a completely different direction, maybe bring Philip back, strong, powerful midfielder. I know he had a brief stint at Napoli when they won the league. Yeah, those were the two ideas I had.
Do you mean Philip Billing?
Yeah, sorry, Philip Billing. That's what I meant to say. I don't know. I said, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I mean that would be interesting. I think with Billing, I don't know, like I feel like if Napoli wanted to keep him, they would have kept him at the end of the last season.
yeah,
But I think Veerman is definitely an interesting shout. I mean, I think his profile would fit the Serie A quite well and Conte's game, which is, very dynamic. The midfielders are expected to do a lot of the work off the ball as well. I think that would be an interesting signing for sure. And I do agree that KDB, although obviously his quality is out of question, as you guys know, we're big fans of him on this podcast. His injury record has been pretty poor over the last 3, 4 seasons even, so it's been quite a while. So yeah,
yeah.
that's an interesting one. Then moving on to fourth place, where we have Juve. What do you think? What are you thinking for the old lady?
Yeah, so this one's a bit of a Captain Obvious one because there have been links to this player, but I think the links are justified. Honestly, I think Jean-Philippe Mateta is a great potential avenue. You're smiling. Why are you smiling already? What are you
I
thinking
had
here?
him as well, to be
Oh,
honest.
you
So
did?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I know he's been rumored, but I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Multiple teams have been in for him. I don't even think Juve are the only Serie A team that's been interested. I think he was rumored as well with AC Milan or Inter Milan. Mateta is a great player. 28 years old. He's in the prime physically and technically of his career. He's been extremely good for Crystal Palace. Last season he was, arguably like top five strike. Yeah, I'd say definitely top five strikers in the Premier League. Um, he's even been rumored to other big Premier League clubs. At one point, he was rumored for Manchester United. And yeah, I think he would translate well. He wants to break into the French national team, which has a lot of competition in that position. And I think going and establishing yourself at a really big, really important team like Juventus could be just the thing for him.
Yeah, so I had him as well. I think obviously he's had a pretty public falling out with the Crystal Palace board, I guess, or owners. Like he really wants to leave at this point, and I kind of get it. I mean, he's been playing at a pretty high level, and it's probably easy to get your head turned. But at the same time, Crystal Palace did kind of make his career in some way, so it's a bit sad when these things end poorly like this. But it would be interesting, I think, for Juve. So the thing is, Juve currently have three strikers on their books, which are Jonathan David, Openda, who they signed this
Yeah.
summer for big money relatively, and also Vlahovic, even though
Which
Vlahovic has
are
been injured.
crazy names, by the way. The fact that we're still bringing up
Yeah.
another striker despite them having those three.
I
Anyways,
mean,
go ahead.
the thing is, I would see it more as you're spending the money that you'd be spending in the summer for a striker now, because
Yeah,
Vlahovic is going to leave for sure. He's already confirmed that, and his salary is also way too high for the
right.
output he's been producing over the last couple seasons. And so I would see them bringing in Mateta as doing the business now rather than in the summer, even though it is normally more expensive. But sometimes these opportunities come up that maybe won't come up in the summer. There might be competition in the summer, like the conditions might be different, right? So I think it would be good to get him in early. The only thing that I see as a problem is that they'll have at least until June four strikers on their books making significant money in and Spalletti
Yeah.
really played the system with one striker up top, right? So unless you change that to maybe a two striker formation,
Well,
I just think there might be a bit of overbooking in that zone of the field.
Openda's on a loan though, right? At Juventus. So he
I'm pretty sure he's maybe it's with an obligation to buy. Like I'm pretty
oh,
sure
there's
they're
an
like
obligation.
yeah.
Okay.
Like he's
Okay,
at
I
least
wasn't
and also
sure.
it was like 35, 40 million, so it's not insignificant money
You know, it's
for
I also thought it was funny when I was, seeing the links with Mateta, and I decided, you know what, that's a good pick because when you look at that list, obviously Vlahovic is a bit of a different situation, as you mentioned, with the salary and all. But all three of those guys were like, are strikers that a couple years ago people were talking about as like the highest potential like strikers in Europe. They're all around 25 years old. Vlahovic was linked to Chelsea. I think he's still been linked like occasionally. There's this endless linking. Openda was an absolute menace in the Bundesliga, while Jonathan David was amazing in the French league. And I've actually known about
yeah.
Jonathan David since his Belgium league days because I had signed him on a FIFA career mode way back, like 5 years ago. Um, but it's funny because these guys, you would expect them to have a better impact than they've had. They've been, to be honest, quite poor at Juventus, at least on an output level. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Spalletti will change it a bit because his strikers tend to score a lot of goals. But I agree
it's
that
true.
up to this point, they haven't been that good, at least, in comparison to what their promise was. So it would be interesting though to see Mateta. Another person they're linked with, even though we haven't included him in our list, is Yusuf En-Nesyri. He's also
Yeah.
playing right now in Fenerbahce. It seems like
Right.
that's going to fall through because he doesn't seem convinced by to join just as a loan player. He'd want to join permanently. But he would be an interesting signing potentially as well if that were to materialize. I do think his play style specifically would fit the Serie A really well. Like he's kind of pretty fast, like pretty good in the air. Maybe not the most physical, but he still can handle himself quite well. He's got unbelievable jump on him for headers. So
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see for sure.
You, you know who actually you're reminding me, one of the players I considered bringing up for Juventus as a second pick for Mateta or even for any of these teams that need a striker is Gonzalo Ramos from PSG. It's a similar type of profile to what you're describing. Very physical,
Yeah.
good in the air, strong player, but yeah, I think he might be looking for a big move since he's not a starter at PSG.
Yeah, yeah, and I think also he would probably move for a significant amount of money, and Serie A clubs don't really have the cash right now, so we'll see. Okay, so moving on to the fifth club, Roma. We It's actually interesting. We've had a pretty active window so far.
Yeah.
We signed Robinho Vaz, a young wonder kid from Marseille. He's 18 years old. We paid a lot of money for him, so hopefully he's gonna be good. We
And
also
Devin
signed Daniel
Wrench.
Malen. Yeah, exactly. Oh no, Wrench,
Yeah.
we signed him last year already, but we
Oh, was he
uh
from
we
last year?
signed
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. We signed Malen though, from Villa, which is for now he's been really good. I mean, he's only played one game, but he scored a goal and got another one canceled out for a very small offside. And it seems like him and Dybala are linking up quite well, so fingers crossed. We got him on loan with a obligation to buy, I think, if we make the Champions League for about 25 million. So it's again quite a big investment for Roma. And we also terminated Leon Bailey's loan. So Leon Bailey was on loan for the season, and we terminated the loan after 6 months. So that didn't work out so well, but he's been injured pretty much the whole time, so it makes sense. Now we're still looking for a couple attacking options, but I want to focus a bit on our defense because Roma plays with three at the back, which means you need quite a bit of center back depth. And one of our best performing defenders, Edmoso, is going to be out for a month or two. And we kind of need cover for that. So a player, he's been linked already officially as well, but I really like the look of Rado Dragozin. So he plays for Tottenham right now, even though I think he's only played about 10 minutes all season. But he came from Genoa, so he came from the Serie A few years ago to Tottenham for about 25, 30 million. So he knows the league quite well. And I think he'd fit Gasperini's characteristics of a center back quite well as well. He likes center backs that
Mhm.
are faster. He likes center backs that are able to play across the three, right? So not only left side center back, but also center and right side center back. And yeah, I think it would be a good fit. And if we can sign him for not a super high fee and avoid the competition that we'd likely have in the summer for his services, or even avoid Spurs sacking Thomas Frank and maybe the new manager liking him, right? It would be good to get that business done sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, for Roma, I had a little bit of trouble just because I don't watch your games that often and know your squad in great detail. But I had an idea for one when I was looking back and doing a bit of research. And fortunately or unfortunately, this player is now being linked directly to Manchester United a lot in the last like 2 days. So we'll see how that pans out. But I was thinking of Wilfred Ndidi actually as a holding defensive midfielder. Apparently, he's wanting to leave Besiktas and wanting to leave Turkey. I know you've mentioned that some of these players that play in Turkey can be on big money contracts, but Ndidi is a very high quality player. I mean, he's 29, so he's in the prime of his career. He recently turned 29 actually. He was great at Leicester. He was actually one of the few good players in an otherwise disappointing team, that got relegated. Um, and that looked like a position from the layman looking in at the Roma team. That looked like a position that you guys could strengthen and where he could be quite good.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. Like we definitely could do with a bit more depth in the midfield as well. We currently have Cristante, we have Manu Kone, we have Elanawi. So it's quite some good players, but you always need some more depth, especially in that Gasperini
Especially as a
system that puts a lot
six.
of
Yeah.
stress. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it'll also be interesting what happens this summer because I think Manu Kone might have quite a few suitors around Europe. So if they're willing to
Yeah.
pay the right price, he might have to, he might be moved on as well, which I mean,
He's a
he's
great
one of the
player.
best midfielders right now in Europe, in form at least, and it would be nice to see him I mean, if he has to leave, he'll potentially go to a club like Liverpool or I don't know, Man United, even like a top European club, which
Yeah.
no one can really begrudge him doing that. But so that would be interesting for sure. I hadn't really thought about the midfield, but it's definitely an area where Roma could use a bit more depth. Now, the last club I want to talk about briefly is Como, just briefly because I think they're pulling up some trees. They won 6-0 the other day against Torino, so they've been phenomenal and they're really fighting for that last Champions League berth potentially, even if they keep up their form. Now, Como's an interesting one because their club is really full of young players and like specifically young Spanish players. So I think it would be interesting to see some more come to the club, but I actually want to propose an Italian player, and I'm proposing Palestra. So he's a defender that plays for Cagliari. He's 20 years old. He's going to be quite expensive. It'll cost about 25 to 30 million euros, but I think for a club like Como, who have obviously very significant backing, that won't be necessarily an issue. And he's a very attacking-minded fullback, and I think he would be exactly what Fabregas is looking for. Fabregas really likes to incorporate the fullbacks into the attack, like have them join and be, the starters of the attack even a lot of times. And yeah, I think he would be a good addition to the team. But I think they're doing really well right now, and I wouldn't touch too much, but I think he could be a good addition.
Yeah, I actually am not familiar with Palestra, so that's good insight. If that's a position that they need and they need to strengthen, that makes sense to me. I struggled a bit with Como because I don't really like outside of, we talked about Nico Paz was gonna leave. I was
Mm.
thinking, okay, are they gonna need to fill that position? But then, what kind of budget are they working with? They're typically leaning towards young players. Um, I really struggled at coming up with some names. I thought, you know, they could maybe try and bring Cutrone back from loan. He's a bit of a Como legend, so to speak, even though is his quality, good enough for them currently with what they're wanting to do in this area? I don't know. I can't speak to that. I haven't watched him play enough, but I know that he's quite a big figure at the club, and that could be if they're on still have a good relationship with him, I could see that working. Otherwise, I know Jonathan Ikone used to play for them, though I don't think he was incredible. I think his dribbling was very good, but I think his output was probably relatively poor for expectations. He's been a bit better now at Paris FC, but yeah, those are my first thoughts, which are again tied directly to previous players they've had. Otherwise, they could try and bring in someone big who has experience, like maybe an Orsolini, but that might be a tough deal to swing.
I think that would be a tough deal to swing in the January transfer window for sure. Like I mean, it wouldn't be beyond the
Yeah,
realms of
maybe that's
possibility
more
for
for
the summer,
summer.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, but I mean, I think these are some interesting suggestions. I think if some of these signings, if they do materialize, they'll help propel some of these clubs up the table, or in Inter's case, hopefully keep the rest at bay. But yeah, I think this was our, top six needs, like what each team needs to achieve their respective objectives. I know that maybe some of our viewers aren't as familiar with the Serie A, but if you aren't, I encourage you to watch because it's actually been quite an entertaining league over the past few years and
It's the most
very
competitive.
surprising as well and competitive, exactly. So hopefully is a bit of an introduction for some of you to the league and kind of incentivize you to watch it. And yeah, let us know what you think. If one of you are an Inter or Milan fan or of any of the other clubs, if you think that the needs are somewhere else on the pitch, let us know. And thanks for watching.